The wind came first. IT ripped through the mountain pass like a living thing, screaming through pine and stone, flinging snow sideways until the world dissolved into white chaos. In that storm, life did not ask permission to end. It simply did. Elias Boone felt it before he saw it. His axe was raised mid-swing, muscles tight, breath steady when something in the air shifted. Not sound, not sight, a pressure, a wrongness. 15 winters alone in the northern frontier had sharpened his instincts beyond reason. The forest spoke to him now in silence, and silence was shouting. He lowered the axe slowly. Down the slope, barely visible through the curtain of snow, a dark shape moved, and then collapsed. Elias stood frozen for a heartbeat. He could turn back. The cabin was warm. The fire was fed. Survival in this land depended on knowing when not to interfere. The mountains punished mercy. Then the wind carried something fragile across the storm that a broken sob. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough to prove there was still breath in that body. Elias swore under his breath and started downhill. Each step was a fight. Snow swallowed his boots to the knee. The cold gnawed through wool and leather, biting into old scars that never truly healed. When he reached the fallen figure, he saw immediately that this was no hunter, no drifter hardened by the wild. She was young, too young for this place. Dark hair clung to her face in wet strands. Her dress was torn, thin, useless against the cold. Her hands shook violently as she tried to push herself up again, slipping in blood-stained snow. And beneath the layers of desperation, beneath the filth and fear, there was a truth that stopped Elias's breath. She was pregnant. Her eyes found his boots first, then slowly traveled up to his face. There was no fear in them. Fear had already burned out. What remained was exhaustion so deep it bordered on peace. Her lips moved. "I can't." The rest vanished into the wind. Elias shrugged out of his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders before his mind could object. She flinched at the sudden warmth, then sagged forward, forehead pressing weakly against his chest. The weight of her nearly knocked him back. It wasn't just her body. It was the responsibility, the risk. The past he had buried under years of snow and solitude. He hesitated only long enough to curse fate. Then he lifted her into his arms and turned toward the cabin. The storm followed them, angry and relentless, as if offended that something had been taken from IT. By the time Elias kicked the cabin door shut, his beard was crusted with ice and his arms burned from the effort. He laid her gently on the narrow bed near the hearth and moved with practiced urgency. Fire, water, blankets, the cabin filled with heat and shadow. Her breathing was shallow, uneven. Blood soaked the hem of what remained of her dress, dark and terrifying against pale skin. Elias swallowed hard. He had seen blood like this before, on battlefields, in burned villages, in places where hope went to die. He cleaned the wound on her leg first. A deep gash, badly infected, likely from barbed wire or broken timber. Then her hands, raw and cracked. Then her face, streaked with dirt and tears frozen mid-fall. She stirred as the warmth reached her core. "No," she whispered, eyes fluttering open. Panic surged briefly, weak but sharp. "Please don't send me back." Elias stilled. "Back where?" he asked quietly. Her lips trembled. For a moment, he thought she wouldn't answer. Then a single word escaped her, heavy as a grave. "My brother." The way she said it, like a curse, like a wound, told him everything and nothing at once. "You're safe," Elias said, though the word felt dangerous in his mouth. "Storm won't let anyone travel tonight." Her breathing eased slightly. Exhaustion reclaimed her. She slipped back into unconsciousness with tears drying on her lashes. Elias sat by the fire long after he finished tending her. The flames crackled softly, casting light on the rough walls, the scars on his hands, the quiet life he had built to avoid exactly this. He had buried a wife once, a child too small for a coffin. He had learned the cost of loving in a cruel world. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, a fragile life fought to stay. Morning came reluctantly. The storm had passed, leaving behind a frozen stillness so complete it felt unreal. Elias rose stiffly and checked on her before anything else. She was awake now, propped slightly against the wall, eyes alert despite the pain etched into her face. She watched him like a trapped animal watches an unfamiliar kindness. He set a bowl of broth beside her. She hesitated before taking it, fingers shaking. "What's your name?" he asked. She swallowed carefully before answering. "Clara." "Elias." She nodded, committing it to memory. They sat in silence while she drank. The quiet wasn't awkward. It was heavy, respectful. Outside, sunlight glittered off snow-laden trees. Inside, something fragile was beginning to thaw. "Why were you out there?" Elias asked finally that Clara's gaze dropped to her hands. "He sold me," she said. The words were flat. Dead. Like she had repeated them so many times they no longer hurt in the same way. He said it was the only way to pay his debts. "Promised I'd be taken care of." "Promised." Her fingers curled into the blanket. "When I told him I was with child, he said that made me more valuable." Elias's jaw tightened. The fire popped sharply. "I ran," she continued. "I didn't know where. I just ran until my legs stopped working." "You were bleeding," Elias said. She nodded. "I fell, kept getting up. Then I couldn't anymore." Silence settled again. "You can stay," Elias said at last. She looked up sharply. "I can't pay you." "I'm not asking." Her eyes searched his face for cruelty, for expectation, for the price that always came later. She found none, only a man worn thin by loss and weather. "They'll look for me," she whispered. "Let them," Elias said. That night, as Clara slept under layers of blankets, Elias stood outside the cabin and stared into the endless trees. He knew what taking her in meant. Men like her brother didn't forgive lost profit. The frontier remembered blood. But for the first time in years, the silence around him felt less like safety and more like waiting. And somewhere deep beneath the snow and scars, something long buried inside Elias Boone stirred, fragile and dangerous as hope.
As they traveled, the land changed. Low hills gave way to rockier ground, scrub giving off a sharp, clean scent when crushed beneath hooves. The first stars appeared, faint at first, then multiplying until the sky was crowded with them. Eliza had never seen so many. Back home, lights from town dulled the night. Here, the dark was vast, alive. She wondered what this man thought of her. A foolish girl chasing a promise. Another mouth to feed. Trouble. She wondered what kind of man offered shelter to a stranger without asking for anything in return. The questions swirled, unanswered. They reached the ranch just as night fully settled. It was small, as he had said, a single-story house, weathered with silver by time, a barn leaning slightly to one side, a corral empty now, gates creaking softly in the breeze. A lantern glowed near the door, a warm, steady light in the dark. He dismounted and offered his hand to help her down. She took it this time, fingers light, and stepped onto the ground. Her knees wobbled, and she laughed softly despite herself, the sound surprising them both. It broke something in the air, eased a tension she hadn't realized had been building since the wagon broke. Inside, the house was simple and clean. A table worn smooth by years of use. 2 chairs, a small stove, a bed in the corner, neatly made, and another narrow one near the back. He set her trunk down and poured water into a tin cup, handing it to her. "Drink," he said. She did, slowly, savoring it. The silence between them was not uncomfortable, just full. He busied himself with lighting another lamp, setting out bread and beans. The ordinary kindness of it made her throat tighten. When she finally looked at him again, really looked, she saw the weight he carried. Not just in the lines of his face, but in the way he moved, careful, contained. A man who had learned the cost of mistakes. "Thank you," she said, The words small but sincere, he inclined his head. You can rest. Tomorrow we'll see about that wheel. She nodded, exhaustion settling over her like a blanket. As she lay down, staring up at the low ceiling, listening to the night sounds outside, she felt fear still, yes, but beneath it, something else. A fragile sense that maybe, just maybe, she had stepped into a different story than the one she had been running from. Outside, the wind rose again, circling the house, testing it. The storm had not arrived yet, but it was close. Morning did not arrive gently. The storm had torn through the night and left the land raw and exposed, as if the earth itself had been stripped of its defenses. Clouds clung low to the hills, dragging shadows behind them. The air smelled of wet dust and iron. Every sound carried farther now. The drip of water from the eaves, the restless shift of the horses, the slow, steady breathing of two people who had survived something they had not yet named. The cowboy woke first as he sat at the edge of his bed, boots already on, hands resting on his knees. Sleep had come in fragments, images of lanterns in the rain, a woman's silhouette cutting through darkness, the echo of a gunshot swallowed by thunder. He touched the cut on his brow, now stiff with dried blood, and winced. Outside, the land looked different. Cleaner, more honest. He stepped onto the porch and scanned the horizon. No movement, no rastros, but the quiet felt temporary, like a held breath behind him. The floor creaked. She stood in the doorway, wrapped in a spare blanket he must have left out without remembering. Her hair had dried into loose waves, dark against her shoulders. She looked smaller in the morning light. Not weaker, just human. They'll come back, she said that it wasn't fear. It was fact, he nodded. Maybe not today, but soon. Yes. They stood side by side, looking out at the same land, carrying different ghosts. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the 2 coins. He held them for a moment, then placed them on the porch rail between them. You can keep those, he said, for the road. She shook her head slowly. I gave them to you. I didn't earn them. Her gaze softened just slightly. You did more than earn them. She pushed the coins back toward him. He did not push them away again. Some exchanges were not meant to be undone. That a hawk circled overhead, crying out once before gliding away. The sound followed her eyes. I can't stay, she said. He had known that before she spoke it. Still, the words landed heavy. They won't stop hunting me, she continued. Not because of what I've done, because of who I am, because it's easier than letting the past stay buried. He thought of the burned villages beyond the hills, of graves without names, of choices made by men who never had to carry the weight of them. You head north, he said. There's a pass through the rocks. Hard to follow. Water along the way. She looked at him, surprised. You know those paths. I had a friend once, he said. He taught me how not to get found. She smiled then. Not wide, not careless, but real. The sound of hooves cut through the air. Both of them turned. This time, there was no storm to hide the danger. 3 riders appeared at the crest of the hill, moving slow, deliberate. Not the men from the night before. These rode differently, straighter, like they believed the land owed them something. The cowboy's jaw tightened. Lawmen. She drew a breath, steadying herself. Or men pretending to be. Either way, he said, they won't listen. The riders stopped at the fence. The one in front dismounted, his boots clean, his badge catching the light. His eyes slid past the cowboy and fixed on her. There she is, he said calmly. We've been looking. The woman did not move. The cowboy stepped forward. You're on private land. The man smiled. We have papers. Let me see them. The man did not reach for his pocket. No need. We're taking her in. For what? For justice. The word hung there, empty. The woman stepped forward before the cowboy could stop her. She folded her hands in front of her, posture straight, proud. I will go, she said. But not like this. The man raised a brow. Like what? Like an animal. The man's smile thinned. You don't get to choose. She turned to the cowboy then. Their eyes met, and in that moment, 1,000 unspoken things passed between them. Gratitude, regret, understanding. He shook his head once. Small, Firm. No, he said. The rider stiffened. You don't want this, the man warned. The cowboy's voice was quiet. I already have it. What followed was not chaos, but decision. The cowboy stepped aside, opening a narrow space between the house and the corral. The woman understood immediately. She did not hesitate. She moved, fast and silent, disappearing into the gap and then into the brush beyond point one of the riders reached for his weapon. The cowboy moved faster. The scuffle was brief and brutal, more weight and leverage than violence. A man went down hard, breath knocked from his lungs. Another hesitated just long enough to reconsider his certainty. Enough. The lead man snapped. He looked at the cowboy, then at the land where the woman had vanished. This isn't over, he said. No, the cowboy agreed. It never is. They left in anger and disbelief, dust rising behind them like a curse. The land swallowed the woman whole. Hours passed. The cowboy sat on the porch again, alone now, the 2 coins heavy in his pocket. He did not know if she had made it to the pass. He did not know if she would survive what waited beyond it. But he knew this. She would not stop walking as the sun dipped low. He rose and walked to the basin out back. The water inside was still cloudy from the day before. He poured it out and refilled it, watching the clear water catch the light. He washed his hands slowly, not because they were dirty, because he needed to remember the feeling. Far away, beyond the hills, a woman walked north. Her feet were sore, her body ached, but her spine was straight, and her eyes were fixed on the narrow line where earth met sky. She carried no money now, only choice, and sometimes that was enough if this story stayed with you. If you've ever known what it means to be judged before you're heard, hunted before you're understood, leave a comment below. Let your voice be part of the silence that finally breaks. And remember, even in a world shaped by dust and scars, a single act of courage can change the direction of the wind. The storm broke just before dawn, not with thunder at first, but with a low groan in the sky, a sound like the earth itself shifting in its sleep. Eliza woke to the smell of rain and the sharp rattle of wind against the walls. For a moment she lay still, listening to the house breathe around her, the boards creaking, the roof answering each gust. Then came the thunder, sudden and close, and the rain followed in hard, slanting sheets. She pulled on her boots and stepped into the main room. The man was already there, fastening his coat, movements quick but calm. The lamp cast deep shadows across his face, carving the lines there even deeper. "The corral gate won't hold in this," he said. "I need to secure it." "I'll help," she said. Before fear could argue her down, he looked at her then, really looked, as if measuring not her strength but her resolve. He nodded once. Outside, the world was chaos. Rain stung her skin, wind tore at her skirt, turning every step into a fight. They moved together without speaking, hands finding ropes, posts, each other when footing slipped. Mud sucked at their boots. Lightning split the sky, turning night into blinding white for a heartbeat at a time. In one such flash, Eliza saw riders cresting the far ridge. 3 shapes against the storm, moving with purpose. Her breath caught, the same careless posture, the same wrongness. She grabbed his sleeve and pointed. He followed her gaze, his jaw tightening. There was no surprise in his eyes, only decision. "Get inside," he said. "They're coming here," she replied, rain plastering hair to her face. "I know." Another crack of thunder rolled overhead, close enough to rattle her teeth. The riders descended fast now, using the storm as cover. Eliza's mind raced. There would be no talking this time, no easy turn away. They reached the house just as the riders pulled up, horses snorting, eyes wild. Mud spattered coats and faces. One of them laughed, sharp and mean. "Looks like we found you again," he said. "Storm brings folks together, don't it?" The man stepped forward, placing himself squarely between them and Eliza. His hand hovered near his gun, not trembling. "This is your last warning," he said. The rain seemed to hold its breath. Then everything happened at once that a rider moved. A gun came up. The sound tore through the storm, deafening. Eliza screamed as splinters flew from the doorframe. The man fired back, precise, controlled. One rider went down hard, disappearing into the mud with a shout cut short. The others scattered, circling, shouting over the rain. Eliza pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering so hard it hurt. She could taste metal in her mouth. Time fractured into moments. Another shot, a horse rearing, lightning freezing the scene in stark relief. Point one rider dismounted and rushed the house. Eliza saw him coming and acted before thinking. She grabbed the lantern from its hook and hurled it with everything she had. It shattered at his feet, flame blooming bright against the dark. He stumbled back, cursing, fire licking at his coat. The man didn't hesitate. He moved through the smoke and rain, faster now, grim. Another shot, another body in the mud. The last rider fled, fear finally overtaking bravado, disappearing into the storm the way he'd come. Silence followed, heavy and ringing. The rain eased, thunder retreating to the distance. Eliza slid down the wall, her legs giving out. She realized she was crying, though she couldn't say when it had started. The man turned to her, blood running from a shallow cut on his arm, rain washing it pink. He knelt in front of her, hands gentle despite everything. "It's over," he said. She nodded, though her body still shook. She reached out without thinking and pressed her hand against his chest, feeling his heart racing under her palm. Alive. They were alive. When morning finally came, it found the land changed. The storm had scrubbed the world raw. The air smelled clean, sharp. The bodies were gone, taken by the night or the land itself. Only broken tracks remained, already softening in the damp earth. They buried the past that day in small ways. He burned the rider's abandoned gear. She folded the letter from Red Butte one last time and placed it beneath a stone at the edge of the property, a marker for a life that would never be. They stood together as the sun dipped low, the sky painted in soft golds and bruised purples. The silence between them was no longer empty. It was full of things unspoken but understood. "I can't promise you easy," he said at last, voice rough. "Or safe." Eliza looked out over the land, over the place where fear had nearly claimed her and choice had pulled her back. She thought of the girl who had knelt in the dirt by a broken wagon, shaking and alone. She was not that girl anymore. "I'm not looking for easy," she said. "I'm looking for real." He nodded, something like relief passing through him. Not joy, not yet, but possibility. The wind moved through the grass, gentle now, carrying away the last echoes of the storm. They stood there, scarred, standing, changed. Not a perfect ending, not a fair one. But if this story reached you, if you've ever stood in the wreckage of a plan and wondered what was left, remember this. Sometimes the road breaks so you can stop where you're meant to stand. If you've carried a quiet fear or a hard choice, leave a word below. Let it be seen, and know that even after the storm, the ground can still hold you.